classic expectation versus reality meme. I'll give you an example. Expectation: I'm a good student sitting in Zoom class. Reality: I may or may not be sitting in my bed in my PG pants eating pizza and scrolling through TikTok. And to any of my teachers in here, I just want to clarify that this was a past me in 7th grade. I'm a changed person now. But all jokes aside, if there's one thing that I've learned from my 16 years on this planet, it's that life sometimes comes in the form of an expectation versus reality meme. And often things don't go the way we expect. A few of you may know, or actually all of you may know, that I am Miss California's teen. Expectation: dresses and glitter and glamour. Reality: spending most of my time video editing behind the camera with immaculate posture. This summer, I got the internship of my dreams at the NASA Ames Research Center, working on the Leia Space Biology project. Expectation: sci-fi and high-tech research under microgravity. Reality: really smelly yeast. The gap between expectation and reality is often vast, and sometimes what we think we know isn't the full picture. This became apparent to me through two key experiences, one in advocacy and one in science, that showed me how crucial it is to understand the full picture before jumping to conclusions. For the past few years, one of my biggest passions has been helping break down educational barriers for students in underserved communities, such as the Watsonville migrant farm working community. This is a rural agricultural community just 40 minutes away from the Silicon Valley. And among farm worker students with a graduation rate as low as 10%, it's shocking but not surprising that many middle schoolers still struggle to read. One of the organizations that I was working with at the time was drumming up support for a bill called AB 2240. This bill would strike down the 50-mile regulation, which is a rule that required families to move and relocate at least 50 miles away from their agricultural subsidized housing in order to qualify for housing the following season. Now, this was very disruptive to children's education because it forced children to move schools at least twice a year. To me, I wondered, what was the purpose of this bill? The organizations had let me know that it was seemingly just unjust and outrageous. And so, naturally, I jumped at the chance to support AB 2240. At a state assembly meeting, alongside state and national organizations, I passionately voiced support for AB 2240. But something unexpected happened. When the assembly chair called up for opposition against the bill, I stood and watched amazed as I saw a line of people, mostly farm workers, form from one end of the room to the other. I was stunned. Why were the people that we were here to protect standing up against this bill? It turns out that while AB 2240 would help the workers who stayed locally year-round, it would harm migratory workers who worked seasonally and were actually on seasonal visas, so they traveled between their home country and the US every year. In fact, the 50-mile regulation was originally created for these seasonal workers to afford the seasonal housing every year. Without seeing the full picture and history of this quote-unquote outrageous bill and regulation, we had misrepresented the group we were trying to fight for. This experience prompted in me a terrifying notion that perhaps more often than I think, our expectations do not match reality because we don't see the full picture. I learned that lesson again 2 years ago when I interned in the NASA GeneLab for High School program. In this program, students get to use really cool bioinformatics software to analyze gene data from organisms who are affected by spaceflight to see how those conditions can affect them since they're good human models. Each team was assigned a different data set to analyze and present their findings in a final competition, which was open to the entire NASA bioscience community to watch. And the winning team would be able to earn a free trip to Puerto Rico to a national science conference. Puerto Rico. Okay, I was ready to win. I was ready to pack my bags and live that beach girl life. Well, my team was assigned a data set to analyze on cancerous fly data, comparing cancerous fly data genes to cancerous fly data genes on Earth. And at first I was very excited for this project, but a thought crossed my mind. Shouldn't we also consider analyzing a data set with non-cancerous flies, both in space and on Earth? But the pressure of the competition and my trust in the instructors urged me to jump in, and so I got started. My team spent day and night trying to figure out how to make our analysis work. And let me tell you, I have never been closer to losing it than on my second all-nighter when we stared at something that looked like this. And for context, here is a volcano plot. This is what a volcano plot should look like when you have all the differentially expressed genes and done everything correctly. And this is what we got. So I don't think you have to be a data expert to know that this was a tough situation. This was not pretty. And so my team and I struggled, but we kept pushing through. And eventually, we discovered differential expression in a certain gene pathway in the brain. And I was so excited with this finding. That night, as I called my sister over FaceTime to hang out, I shared with her a victory, but she looked at me strangely and she said, "Wait, what does all this brain gene data have to do with the flies being cancerous?" And at that moment, I realized once again, we had never confirmed that this gene differential expression happened only in cancerous flies and not in the non-cancerous flies in space either. Essentially what that means is that the results that we have found could have had nothing to do with the fact that these flies had cancer. I realized something important, that we missed the second control group. My team and I rushed to our mentor to ask her about the situation. And you know what? She admitted that she'd accidentally forgot to provide us with the second control group. And so we went to the repository we requested for the other data, and we re-performed our analysis with the short 30 hours we had left before the final competition. And so, if you're wondering, did you win? Well, no, but we did realize an important discovery. I learned that you can't always assume that you have the full data set, even when given to you by experts. And perhaps more importantly, when you discover that something is missing, you have to have the humility to change course. And in science, this can be easy because it's the common protocol. But in real life or in advocacy, it can be a different case. Back at the state assembly, when the organizations heard about the unexpected opposition to AB 2240, they had a tough pill to swallow. It was months of effort, of rallying, and donor dollars that had gone to waste. And so unfortunately, the organization continued to push forward their support publicly of AB 2240. As a result, the bill was passed, which devastated the groups of seasonal migrant farm workers who needed the seasonal subsidized housing. And so, 3 months after the bill was passed, the organization finally rescinded their support of the bill. But it had already been passed, and it was too late. From then on, I knew that I had to rethink my approach to advocacy. And so I refocused my work to service. Since then, I've established computer labs, a Reading Buddies tutoring program, and distributed DIY STEM kits to students in the Watsonville area to help them to rise above adversities. And I've learned that as a huge fan of space science, one of my favorite things about what the field teaches us is to zoom out and see the bigger picture. One of my favorite quotes from Buzz Aldrin, Apollo 11 astronaut and second man on the moon, is, "We can continue to try to learn more about our universe by staying here on Earth, but only by venturing further can we fully understand how little we know and how much more there is to discover." And that, in a nutshell, is the lesson. So let me leave you with one last expectation versus reality truth. Expectation. If we work hard enough, and we can use any data set to solve any problem. reality, the picture is often bigger and messier than we think. And that's what makes the journey worthwhile. So I want to encourage you to stay humble, seek truth, and keep searching.